So in order to determine the shape and exact dimensions of the fretboard, I've taken measurements of the locking nut and the bridge. I've taken that and added an extra 1/8 inch on either side. An 1/8 inch is a nice comfortable clearance between the edge of the string and the edge of the fretboard. So it's easy for me to figure out how wide the fretboard should be at the nut and at the bridge. And since I'm doing a 24 fret guitar, that's 3/4 the length from the nut to the bridge. So then the width at the 24th fret is just 3/4 between the nut and the bridge. I added an extra 1/8 inch at the bridge just to give me a little bit more clearance at the higher frets. I worked it out to 2.6925 inches at the 24th fret. I'm going for a 26 3/4 inch full scale length. So then the 24th fret lands at 20 1/16 inch. So I can just use those numbers and mark out my fretboard on here. And I'm gonna save a bit at this end in case I want to use that for a headstock cap. And I'll give myself just maybe an extra 1/2 inch here in case I want to extend the fretboard past the 24th fret a little bit. So I'm just going to mark the key 4 points. And I'll just join those. We've got scored and marked lines, and we can cut that out. Now I've left about an extra 1/16 of an inch on either side, because I'm going to take this down on the planer to get these edges perfectly straight. Just taking really light passes for this. So that's got right at the 24th, 68.4, and yep, exactly 48 at the nut there. So this fretboard's exactly where we want it. So I've taken the extra piece from the fretboard and thinned it down to 2 millimeters. I'm going to be using it as a headstock veneer. I like it when the fretboard actually matches the headstock. So I've just cut a notch in that as well for the truss rod access, and I'll clean that up with chisels later. I'll just go ahead and glue this down. So just have to add a little bit of material under here for the ears of the headstock. So here's just a couple little blocks I've whipped up to use for the ears. That should cover what I need. So just glue those up. I'll just take the clamps off. Now I just want to trim up the excess from that headstock veneer so that the neck blank is entirely flat all the way into that. And I'll also clean up the extra edges around the truss rod access. It's pretty nice. So I'll just sand that flush now. So now the locking nut will go right to the edge of the flat section where it breaks right there. And now I know where I need to glue the fretboard. So I've marked the edge of the locking nut, so I know how far up my fretboard has to go. And I've also marked the centers of the fretboard and the neck, so I have a point to line them up there. And I've marked the sides of the fretboard near the headstock too. So I know exactly where I want to place the fretboard. One trick to keep it from moving it around while we glue it, you just pop a couple staples into your neck blank. There you. So then you cut off those staples, just leaving little spiky nubs. And then we can line this up and then just press into those staples. And now you've basically got little guide pins for your fretboard, so it won't move around while you glue it. I want to just put a strip of thin tape over the truss rod so that we don't get any glue in that channel. And I'll trim the excess with a craft knife. Now I can start gluing. And before I go much further, I'm just going to double check that it's centered. Yep, looks good. There, and we'll definitely leave that overnight. And now we can trim the neck blank to match the fretboard. We'll start doing that roughly on the band side. So now we'll trim the neck blank flush to the fretboard using a pattern follower bit like that, which has a guide bearing to follow the fretboard. There we go. It's all squared up. I'm just going to go ahead and roughly cut the headstock out, just because it's way too tempting to do that now. And I've just traced it onto the back of the headstock, so I'll go ahead and cut. There we go. Nice and rough cut out. And the last thing I'll do with this tonight is just drill the holes for the tuners. So I'll just mark through my template where I'll be drilling. There we go, I got my marks. And I'll take that to the drill press, doing about a 3/8 inch bit for this. So I'm going to start by pre-drilling all the way through with a smaller bit. I'm just going to break the surface from the face of it so that when I drill from the other side it can't blow out the grain. I'm going to set this depth so that I just reach that point. There we go. We got our tuner holes all cut out. All 7. That's right, 7. And they're all clean and no blowout on either side. Good. So now that we have what's looking like a neck, this is a point where we want to start cutting the fret slots and working on inlays before we actually start carving. So that's what I'll start in the next episode.